Thanks for joining me on episode 715 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Dow Tippett, author of 7 Daily Choices. I challenge you to invest in yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world by using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to make the right choices every day is key, and one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend Scott Mader.
Whenever we're not doing that, it's harder to have hope for ourselves because we're not injecting hope in others. And don't get me wrong, I know when you're in a crisis situation, when you're really struggling, it's nearly impossible to have hope. You begin to hold on to everything you've got because that's the only thing you have control over.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's episode about impacting the world through stewarding your treasures, I talk with you about why without hope, your money affects you more than you know, how hope can lead to a more positive use of your money, and why what we do with our money is important to our hope. As we talk about stewarding your treasures, wouldn't it be great if you could support this podcast and do it without costing yourself an extra dime? Turns out you can. All you have to do is use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon when you're ready to make a purchase via Amazon, and a small commission will come back to support the show. If you enjoy the show when you're ready to buy from Amazon, just use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon. There's a lot of really interesting studies out there that show that when people are exposed to money words or when people are given gifts of money, it affects them directly. It affects their ability to see and empathize with others. They actually become less skillful at recognizing emotion on other people's faces. And that whenever they are given monies, they tend to become a little more selfish. They tend to become a little less involved in others. And I think it's true that our money can affect us. And one of the ways that we can kind of inoculate ourselves against that is by having hope. See, one of the things that I think happens is whenever we don't have hope for the future, when we don't recognize that the future can be better than today, we begin to hold on to everything that we have. We begin to get more of a hoarding mentality where we don't want anyone else to have it because we're honestly afraid that we're going to lose everything that we have, that somebody's going to come along and take what we've got. And that feeling of coveting what we have, of feeling like the money that we have is our security, causes us to hold on to it. And one of the things that we can do to inoculate ourselves against that, to not have that feeling as dramatically, is recognizing that we have hope in the future and that we have a mission and we have things that are bigger than us that we want to do. And yeah, they may take money to do them, but the money itself is not what lets us do it. The money instead comes as a result of doing those things that we're called to do. You know, the truth is having hope in the future allows you to be more generous. It allows you to see when others are in need and to gift them money and other things, time, effort, energy, whatever. It allows us to move forward and do things that they need because we can see it as a need. You know, the truth is that when we have hope, it changes how we act with our money. It lets us not hoard it as much. It lets us not hold on to it as tightly. It lets us recognize that the money is just that. It's money. Money's not good. Money's not bad, but what we can do with it can have tremendous effects on others. It can help others. But to recognize that, we have to first recognize that it's not ours, that it's not something that we should hold on to and hoard. It's not our source of security or power. Instead, our source of hope has to lie outside of money. Our source of hope has to be bigger than money. This is why I encourage people to come up with their why and their mission, the things that are more important to them than anything. And usually, if their values, if their priorities are bigger than money, then they begin to see the money as just a tool. And it allows us to be more generous. By the same token, one of the things that I've done with folks is encourage them to do things with their money so that it begins to give them hope. So, for example, to use some of their money to give to charities, to give to churches, to give to others that are more in need, and also to give of their time in those ways, to go help at a soup kitchen, to go work with some of the homeless, to do whatever it is that they need to do to recognize that they are blessed in some way, even if they're in crisis, to allow them and to encourage them to begin to give and to expand what they're doing so that they bless those around them. And by doing that, they begin to recognize that they can have hope in their own future. Even what we do with our money in our own family, do we save some? Do we give some? Do we spend some? How do we use our money to free up our own time? How do we use our money to show our values to the people that we most love and most care about? Do we use our money on just things that are a waste of time, a waste of energy? Do we spend it and give it and use it for just stuff? Or do we create experiences? Do we create impact? Do we use it to reach other people and to take care of the people that we love, not just monetarily, but in other ways? Do we support the people that we love with the money? Do we use the money to inject hope, not just in our own families, but in others? Do we have something that we use to reach beyond our own four walls? And whenever we're not doing that, it's harder to have hope for ourselves because we're not injecting hope in others. And don't get me wrong, I know when you're in a crisis situation, when you're really struggling, it's nearly impossible to have hope. You begin to hold on to everything you've got because that's the only thing you have control over. But as you can begin to step past that, what you'll find is it becomes a positive feedback loop where as you do things that give you hope, you get more hope. And as you get more hope, you can get more money. And as you get more money, you have more hope. And instead of spiraling downward into a place of less and less hope, less and less control, less and less feeling that you can do anything positive, that everything's going wrong, the spiral begins to go the other direction. You begin to feel that you have a little bit more control. You begin to feel that things are going to be better. And as you do that, then you can believe that the future can be better than today. And I think right now, with everything that's going on, we all need that more now than ever. We need to believe that the future can indeed be better. It may not be the same as it used to be. It may not be the same as we want it to be, but it can still be better than it is today. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of treasures, you can sign up for our treasures tips by going to inspiredstewardship.com/treasures or text in the U.S. 44222 treasures tips. And we'll send you 5 weeks of our best tips on stewarding your treasures. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.